Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Yevamot. We're up to Perek Yud Aleph, Mishnah Zayin. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilui Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbayev, Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, and Chana bad Miriam, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdi ben Chaim Nechaim, and the Refuah Shelema, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, and Mariana Miriam Chaya bat Tamara, Betoch Shah Chulei Israel. The last Mishnah discussed the case where it is not known if a child is the son of his mother's first husband or of her second husband. Our Mishnah continues with this case and explains what the laws of this child are if one of the possible fathers is a Kohen. Hayachad Yisrael v'chad Kohen, if one of the husbands of the woman who did not wait 3 months before remarrying was Israel and the other one was a Kohen, so that it is not known if this child is a Israel or a Kohen, he must be treated as a possible Yisrael and a possible Kohen. Therefore, the following laws apply to him. Now, the following laws of the Mishnah are identical with the laws that we said earlier in Mishnah 5, where the child of a Kohen's wife and the child of her slave woman became mixed up at birth, and the children later freed each other, so that each one is possibly a Kohen and possibly Yisrael. The only difference is that the Mishnah discusses two people, each of whom might be a Kohen or Yisrael, whereas our Mishnah deals with one person who has that same doubt. Nosei Isha Re'ula Kohen, the son may marry only a woman who is fit for a Kohen because he might be a Kohen. Ve'no mitameh lamitim, and he may not become tameh through contact with the dead for the same reason. V'im nitma eno soveg et arba'im. However, if he did become tameh, he does not receive the punishment of 40 lashes because he is possibly not a Kohen. His status with regard to tiruma, ve'eno ochel betruma, he may not eat tiruma because he might not be a Kohen. V'im achal eno meshlem keren v'chomesh, but if he mistakenly did eat tiruma, he does not have to pay the principal, the value of the eaten tiruma plus the additional fifth, because it is possible that he is a Kohen. Ve'eno cholek al agor, and he does not receive a portion of tiruma at the threshing floor where tiruma is given out because he is forbidden to eat tiruma. U'mocher v'tiruma v'adanim shelo, but he may sell to a Kohen the tiruma that he separates from his own produce, and the money from the sale is his to keep. Even though he may not eat tiruma, he may benefit from it by selling it because he might be a Kohen. His status with regard to sacrificial offerings, v'eno cholek b'kodshei hamikdash, he does not receive a portion of the sacrifices of the temple, even those that are not eaten, such as the hides of the offerings, because he might not be a Kohen. Ve'notnim lo kodashim, and we do not give him sacrifices to offer in the temple for the same reason. Ve'en motziim et shelo miyado, but we do not remove his own sacrifices from his possession. Upatur min hazroa ve'lechayim ve'keva, he is exempt from the obligation to give the foreleg, the jaws, and the stomach of kosher animals that he slaughters as a gift to a Kohen, because he might himself be a Kohen. Ubechor yeh roeh shistaev, and his bechor animal does not have to be given to a Kohen, rather it should be left to graze until it develops a disqualifying blemish, and then he may slaughter and eat it. To sum it up, we place upon him both the stringencies of Kohanim and the stringencies of Israelim. The Mishnah continues with the same case and explains how the child's laws are affected if both of his possible fathers are Kohanim. Hayushneim Kohanim, if both husbands were Kohanim, the child is definitely a Kohen. However, because we do not know who his father is, the following laws apply to them. Hu onen alehem, if either husband dies, the son observes the onen laws for him, and he may not perform the temple service or eat from the meat of an offering on the day of their death, since either one might have been his father. And onen is a person who has just lost one of his 7 close relatives, being father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, or wife. A Kohen who is an onen is biblically forbidden to eat the meat of an offering or to perform the sacrificial service on the day of his relative's death. Then onenim alav, and similarly, if the son dies, the husbands observe the onen laws for him, and both of them may not perform the temple service or eat from an offering on the day of his death, since he might have been their son. Hu eno mitameh lahem, the son may not make himself tameh through contact with the husbands if either of them died. Again, hu enu mitameh lahem, the son may not make himself tameh through contact with the husbands if either of them died, because a Kohen may not become tameh through any dead person who was not a close relative, and he does not know if the dead person is really his father. Right, if one of the Kohen's 7 close relatives died, he is allowed and in fact obligated to become tameh through them to attend their burial. But here, since he does not know if the dead person is really his father, he may not make himself tameh for them. Vehem enan mitamino, and similarly, the husbands may not make themselves tameh through contact with him if he died, because each husband does not know if the dead person is really his son. Hu eno yoresh otan, the son does not inherit either husband if one of them dies, because the other sons of each husband can claim that he is not their brother and therefore not a heir. An heir. The other sons of the first husband can argue to him, prove that you are really our brother and then you may inherit with us. Since he has no way to prove this, he may not inherit with them. The second husband's other children can make the same claim to him, so he does not inherit either husband. Aval hem yoshim oto, but the husbands do inherit the son if he dies without children, and they split the inheritance between them. If a person dies without children, his father is next in line to inherit him, as the Gemara says in Mishnah says in Baba Batra, chapter 8, Mishnah 2. In our case, therefore, should the son die childless, the two possible fathers inherit his property, since one of them is definitely his father, and they divide it between themselves. He is exempt from the death penalty for hitting or cursing either the first husband or the second husband, since it is unknown which one is really his father, and a person cannot be punished by the courts when it is not certain that he is guilty. If someone hits and inflicts a wound upon his parent or curses his parent using one of the names of Hashem, he receives the death penalty provided there was proper warning and witnesses. This son, however, does not receive the death penalty if he hits or curses the husbands, since it is uncertain which one is truly his parent. Now, these last two cases of inheritance and the laws of hitting or cursing a parent only apply to the case where both husbands were Kohanim. They not only apply to the case where both husbands were Kohanim, they also apply where both husbands were Israelim, or one was Israel and one was a Kohen. The son goes up into the temple to perform the sacrificial service with the family group of Kohanim of both this husband and that husband when it is their turn to serve, and the other Kohanim of that Mishmar may not prevent him from performing the service. Right, the Kohanim were divided into 24 groups, each of which served in the temple for 1 week at a time on a rotating basis. Each group was known as a mishmar, a watch. In the Mishnah's case, each husband belonged to a different mishmar, so it is unknown to which mishmar the son belongs. So, as we know, sons go to the mishmar of their father. Therefore, here he would go to service with both groups. But he does not receive a portion of the meat or hides of the offerings that are divided among the members of either mishmar, even though the son does not know which mishmar he belongs to. He may serve in the temple with the mishmarot of both the first husband and second husband, and neither mishmar has the right to prevent him from performing the mitzvah of the temple services. But when it comes to monetary benefits, he is not treated as a member of either mishmar, since they can argue to him, prove that you are a member of our mishmar, and then you may receive a portion with us. And obviously, since he cannot, he does not receive a portion with them. If, however, both husbands belong to the same mishmar, noter chelek echad, he does take one portion with the other members of that mishmar when it is their turn to serve in the temple, since no matter who his father is, he definitely belongs to that mishmar. Each mishmar was further divided into 7 family groups called batei avot, with each batei av serving with each bet av serving on one day of that week. The members of the current bet av were given the meat and hides of the offerings that were brought that day. So the Mishnah means that if both husbands belong to the same mishmar, to the same family group within the mishmar, the son receives a portion. But if the husbands belong to a different batei avot, so the son can be refused a portion based on the same argument that we said earlier. And that is the end of Perek Yud Aleph, Mishnah Zayin. We continue now with Perek Yutet, Mishnah Aleph. This chapter discusses the laws and procedures of Chalitza. The Chalitza ceremony has 3 parts to it. The Yevamah removes the shoe from the Yevam's foot. She spits in front of him, and he and she say certain verses from the Ibn passage in the Torah, in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 25, verses 7 to 10. The order in which these steps are done will be described later on in Mishnah 6. The Mishnah begins its discussion of Chalitza by teaching about the type of court in which Chalitza must be performed. Mitzvat Chalitza b'shoshat dayanin. The mitzvah of Chalitza is performed in front of 3 judges, as the pasuk says in regard to the Chalitza ceremony. And his Yevamah shall go up to the gate to the elders, which is a panel of judges. The smallest court is 3 judges, as the Gemara discusses on page 101a in Masechet Yevamot. V'afilu shloshtan edotot. Even if all 3 are laymen, meaning even if they are not official judges and are not even expert in most of the laws of Chalitza, the only thing they must know is how to read Hebrew so that they can dictate to the Yavam and Yevamah the verses that they must say during the ceremony. We learn from a verse that official ordained judges are not required, and furthermore, all the judges need to do is to observe the ceremony and dictate the verses. They do not have to know any of those of chalitza, just how to dictate the verses. The Mishnah teaches what type of shoe may be used for chalitza. Chalitza b'min'al. If the Yevamot performed chalitza with a shoe made of soft leather, chalitzata kshera, her chalitza is valid because such a shoe protects the foot. However, this type of shoe should not be used in the first place because of a rabbinic decree. The rabbis were concerned that the use of a soft shoe for chalitza might result in it being used even when it is torn. A torn shoe is not valid for chalitza because it is not considered a shoe. However, people will sometimes wear a torn shoe of this kind since the leather is soft and the shoe straps hold the torn pieces in place. So to prevent people from mistakenly using such a torn shoe for chalitza, the rabbis decreed that a sandal should be used since it is made from hardened leather and can therefore not be worn once it breaks. So there's no concern that someone will use a broken sandal for chalitza. Ban pilin, but if she performed it with a cloth shoe, chalitzata psula, her chalitza is invalid because the Torah does not consider it a shoe since it does not protect the foot. The pasuk in Yechezkel, chapter 16, verse 10 describes a shoe as being made of leather. We learn from there that only a shoe that protects the foot like a leather shoe is considered a shoe by the Torah. According to this, any shoe that protects the foot can be used even if it is not made from leather. This is in fact the opinion of Rabbi Meir. However, the sages hold that only a leather shoe may be used. As the Gemara discusses on page 103a. Bisandal sheyesh lo akev, if she performed chalitza with a sandal, a shoe made of hardened leather, right? The sandal of the Mishnah is not what we call sandal, but a type of shoe that was closed on top and made of hard leather, that has a heel, a back part of the shoe that wraps around the back of the foot. Kasher, it is valid. Mishen lo akev, but if the sandal does not have a heel, pasul, the chalitza is invalid because such a shoe slips off the wearer's foot and it is therefore not valid for chalitza. As part of the chalitza ceremony, the Yevamot unties the straps with which the shoe is attached to the Yavam's foot. The Mishnah discusses whether the chalitza is valid if this is done when the shoe straps are wrapped around the Yavam's leg above his foot. Mina al-kuva ul-mata, if the shoe used for chalitza is tied to the Yavam's leg below the knee, chalitzata kshera, chalitza is valid. Mina al-kuva ul-mala, but if it is tied above the Yavam's knee, chalitzata psula, her chalitza is invalid because when the shoe is being removed from the Yavam's leg, it must be removed from the area just above his foot. The Torah says regarding chalitza, she shall remove his shoe from upon his foot. The sages explain as the pasuk is saying, she shall remove his shoe from the limb which is above, meaning upon his foot. And that is an Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.